Well, we've got to do better on funding for our kids' education, especially K through 12. We've fallen down on that for quite a few years now, and at least for the last 4. We haven't properly funded our K through 12s, or any education for that matter. Well, there'll be a lot of other things that are important as well, but I believe our education's number one because the kids are our future. But we've also got a lot of problems with this new managed care Medicaid organizations that are providing our Medicaid for our elderly and our poor. That's not working very well, so we need to work on that. Healthcare in general, we need to work on. Water quality will be a big issue this year. I think that we'll probably solve that, but it'll take a lot of hard work to do it. And then hopefully the solution we come up with, hopefully the governor will accept that and send it on. And also we're having a lot of problems with our mental health system too, back into healthcare again. We need to get something accomplished on that. And we're moving in the wrong direction. We're 48th in the nation for mental health care in Iowa, and that's not how Iowans treat people. We take care of each other here, so we've got to work on that. Well, for the education system, if we can develop some kind of an ongoing funding stream that we won't have to revisit every year, that if we can tie that to something to keep it coming back every year at a certain percentage point where our schools can count on it and get them up to par, up to where they should be. I would consider that success. On the mental health side, I think if we'd reopen the Mount Pleasant and the Clarinda mental health institutions, that would be a success. And our Medicare system, I don't know how we can possibly fix that. That's going to take a lot of work. I don't think we'll see success this year or in the next 2 years. I think that's going to be a long, drawn-out process to get that back to where it's good again. Well, in Iowa, as you probably know, we have to have a balanced budget. We cannot spend more than we take in. So we have no choice. What we could do is look at some of our tax credits that we're giving out to large corporations. We could look at some of those tax credit funds that probably aren't needed anymore. They were probably needed by these corporations to get started, but they really don't need that funding anymore. And I think we could fix a lot of problems by just tightening up those tax credits. Taxes, I look for the 3/8 cent tax that we approved that the voters approved back in 2010. That they approved that if we would raise the taxes 3/8 of a cent, they were for water quality projects mostly. I mean, some of them were tied to some trails and streams and things like that as well. But all of it basically relates back to water quality. And I think we'll probably visit that, raising that 3/8 cent to do those projects. It's not going to be popular, and it's not going to be a partisan issue. It's going to take both sides of the aisle to pass that. But I think if we work together, we can. The 3/8 sales tax that we're looking at, that we've been looking at actually for the last 4 years, or since 2010, since the voters told us that they were willing to go there. I think we need to abide by their will and go there, and that'll take care of a lot of our problems. I don't think we'll have to raise other taxes. I think we can, like I say, cut some of these tax credits that are unneeded, and we'll create a new revenue source just from what we already have. Well, that's, again, the tax credits, we have several of them in there that we really don't need to be giving these corporations to do, to stay in business. I mean, they're doing fine, and they'll get by without the help of our tax credits. As far as frivolous programs, I don't think so. We've been pretty frugal. It's been pretty tight since we did the commercial property tax cut back in 2011, I believe, is when we did that. And since we made those tax cuts, the revenue's been pretty tight. So we've been looking everywhere we can to cut corners, and I don't think we've got a lot of fat to cut there anymore. I think we've got even in education, in the funding that we have, I think we've got our priorities a little bit screwed up, because if we don't get our kids through the K through 12 years and ready to go to college, we're going to have nobody going to college. I mean, you've got to get out of high school before you can go to college. So I think we need to fund the K through 12 better, and if we have to steal a little bit of that from the top, then we have to steal a little bit of that from the top. But we've got to get our kids out of high school so that they can qualify to even go on to college. It's great that we can help them in college, but first we've got to get them that far. I'm in favor of medical marijuana. I did a lot of studying on this a couple years ago when we were kicking it around in the first place, and I found that most of the evils supposedly that are from marijuana were pretty much made up by the pharmaceutical companies back in the 1940s, and they were made up because they didn't want to compete. They didn't want marijuana competing with their prescription drugs, and they will. And they spent a lot of money lobbying the United States Congress to make it an illegal substance. And I think we went a little overboard there. I know we went a little overboard there, and it should never have been a Schedule I drug. It should, it should be just like any other drug. It should be a prescription needed and controlled by the government. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. And I've seen its effects. Last year, a lady brought her son back up to the Capitol. She'd been there 2 years ago before we approved the cannabis oil. And he'd went from, I believe it was around 400 seizures a day to 3 a day. And he was, before he was just unattentive at all. I mean, he just couldn't do anything for himself. And he was actually talking and interacting, and he even smiled a couple times. It was helping him. And that's what we need to, we need to worry more about helping people than, the phobias that we have about certain things. On the recreational side of it, I was out in Oregon last summer, and I expected to see people high and doped up and running around on the streets, and it just to be a terrible thing, and it wasn't like that at all. I've been through Colorado. You don't see that at all. I mean, it's even recreational is fairly well controlled, and they treat it basically like we treat alcohol. You can't drive a car if you're high. If you're out in public and you're high, you've got a problem just as if you're drunk. And I really think that if people are going to use it anyway, and I think we could eliminate a lot of our problems with jail time, and we could also eliminate a lot of the gang problems that we have if we controlled it and sold it like alcohol, and had government control of it. Well, I've enjoyed the last 4 years. I'm not a politician. I'm an air conditioning mechanic. But my people in my community gave me the opportunity, and I thank them for that. This has probably been the single greatest experience in my life. I think I'm doing a good job. I work awful hard at it, and I'd sure appreciate it if they'd give me another chance for another 4 years. I'm not going to be a career politician. I want to retire sometime too, but as long as I'm enjoying it and my health's good, I'd like to continue.